Well, I suppose this is just about the most appropriate setting the programme could possibly have. These are just a few mementos of the hundreds of productions that have been serviced by Samuelsons, who in the past 20 years have established themselves as the world's biggest and most successful film facilities company. If you want to make a picture, they'll hire you all the hardware you need to do that, from cameras, lights, sound equipment, the lot. And this is their London headquarters, just 4 or 5 miles north of Marble Arch, at Cricklewood Broadway. The company was founded by the 4 Samuelson brothers, Tony, David, Michael, and Sidney, the last of whom is now Samuelson's chairman and chief executive. Your father, G.B. Samuelson, was as near as you can get to being a one-man band in films. He produced, he rented, he directed, and the rest. What was your start in the industry?
I left school when I was 14, happily, and I managed to get a job at the local cinema as the rewind boy. I felt at that time I was in the film business, and that was how I started.
And then in the war you joined the RAF. What happened after that? How did you get back?
Well, I was on demob leave and finding some difficulty in getting back into the industry. And I hit on a company in Soho Square, the Colonial Office Film Unit. And by chance, or luck, the producer there was George Pearson, who had worked with my father years and years ago. And while he wasn't in a position to engage any trainee camera staff, he was good enough to ask the chief cameraman there to see me. The chief cameraman was not too keen on taking anybody on, but he said, well, can you load a Newman Sinclair magazine? And actually I couldn't. I hadn't ever done anything with professional film cameras, but I said, oh yes, of course I could do that. And this is where the luck came in for me. He said, well, I'm going to lunch, and if you come back after lunch and you can show me what you can do, and then we'll talk about it. My brother David had by that time started in the camera department of British Movietone News. It happened to be next door. So I dashed in and said, how do you load a Newman Sinclair magazine? And during the lunch hour, I learned. It's no big deal, but nevertheless, I knew how to do it. And I went back after lunch and saw the chief cameraman at the Colonial Office unit, and I got a job. That was my start into the camera side of things.
Now, only 30 years separate that episode, when you were more or less on your uppers, from now, when you, with your brothers, your 3 brothers, have built up what must be the largest and most successful film facilities company in the world. It's a lot to ask, but how did that come about?
Well, I bought my own camera because at that time the equipment that you could rent was of a very poor standard. I bought my own camera, and when I was not using it, because I was freelancing at that time, I used to rent it to other people to help to pay for it. Then the time came when I was using it and somebody else wanted to borrow it. And I thought, well, how marvelous it would be to have one camera to use and one to rent. But there was no money available, so my 3 brothers each chipped in £100, and with my own £100, we bought a second camera on HP, and that's really how the rental business started. We had some luck. You always need a bit of luck as well. There were 2 factors that were important, I think, in our development. One was that anybody who was renting cameras at that time, they were not doing a very good job. The equipment was not very good. It was a risk to rent a camera. I think we changed that. I mean, when electric cameras came in, and they existed at that time, you only got 1 battery till we came on the scene. It seems a pretty basic requirement to have a spare battery, but nevertheless, it was we who introduced that. And the other lucky event was that commercial television started, and that created a huge requirement for equipment for people to make programs with. And so we satisfied that demand to an extent. Of course, we had to build the business up, and what happened was that we actually didn't have we never had an injection of capital or anything like that. It was self-financed. I still worked as a technician, And we ran the rental business, as it was then, from the spare bedroom at my home. And during the day, my wife, God bless her, looked after everything to do with the business, as well as bringing up the kids. And we were therefore able to develop in the early days without capital. We had a nil overhead. My wife, I can assure you, didn't get a salary for any of that. And I used to get home and prepare the equipment, and then eventually we moved into premises, and it developed in various ways.
A number of feature films have been signposts, milestones in the Samuelson story. One of them was Tom Jones. Why was that significant?
Tom Jones was important to us because it was the first feature film that we ever did. It was not a big budget picture at all. We were very glad, we were honoured to be servicing a feature. Walter Lassley was the cameraman, and it was the most important thing he'd done up till that time. And we serviced it out of our little place in Hendon, and we were all very thrilled about it. And of course, when it was a huge, massive success, we got a great kick out of it that every piece of camera equipment had come out of the borough's Hendon. It was, yes, it was a landmark. It was the first feature.
Michael, there's a nice buzz of activity which must please you as managing director here in what's obviously the dynamo of the operation. What happens in this central room?
Well, this is a sort of control room where all the calls come in from the customers and get processed by their contact men who are around this big desk here.
So each production company has its own contact man here?
Yes, we try to keep it sort of personalised to that one person so that the production company doesn't have to go asking questions from all the various departments.
And the company may be calling from Land's End or from Lanzarote?
From Timbuktu or all points east and west.
Does this mean that the contact men have to speak a number of languages?
No. We have various people in the company that do speak lots of languages, but I don't think the contact men have too many languages between them.
So just give us an idea of what kind of orders might come in on an average day like today.
Well, we are handling at the moment something like probably 20, 25 feature films, from Superman 2 to Star Wars 2, all the Bond films.
That's as well as television, documentary, commercials.
And then we have all the television commercials that we look after, plus all the television program material and television documentaries and...
Right, so what sort of requests might you get from feature companies on a day like this?
On a day like this, they may suddenly decide they want to shoot with an extra camera, and they give us 30 minutes to get another camera down to Pinewood or something, or they may be booking their equipment for a second unit on Monday, which will be a big batch of equipment. It varies. Sometimes it's just an extra filter, sometimes they've had a disaster and dropped the camera. And we've got to get something out to them very quickly.
Well, they always want to buy yesterday.
Absolutely. We probably don't know, even at this time, about 20% of the equipment that will go out tomorrow. We still haven't had the orders in. They come in during the afternoon and the evening. We operate 24 hours a day, so they call us last.
Have you ever had a request you couldn't answer? What is the most difficult item you've ever had to supply?
I don't know. That's... Yes, we're continuously asked for the impossible, but usually we come up with something.
The colours on the notes here behind me, the yellows and the oranges, what are they made of?
Well, the whole system, we're very vulnerable. If anything ever goes wrong, it's disaster to the production company. If they've got a large crowd or big crew standing by and we don't deliver the right piece of equipment, or it gets delivered at the wrong time, it's, as you can imagine, it's very expensive for the customer. So we've built up a system over the years to try and avoid his mistakes, and everything, we have colours, and everything that happens in the company on a Wednesday happens on a yellow sheet, on a Monday happens on a grey sheet, so that if we know that everything that's on a grey sheet has to go out on Monday, and that's all the transport, the future transport up there. But everything in the camera department that you see down here, that's also in the same colours right through the organisation.
And these books here on this sort of central spine give us some idea of the facilities you offer: accessories, batteries, fog filters.
I mean, this is every piece of equipment that we've got is in one of these, as we call it, zigzag books, where we can allocate out the cameras that are going to people, as you see, ATV, Anglia, may even find some Granada here, I think.
We're in the right place if we go down, aren't we?
But again, it's all the same colours of the week, so that we can immediately know that that Monday is a grey colour, and so we know what's available. These are 16 Ariflex cameras, and we know what we've got available.
Now, what are the films recorded on the wall there? They're not all films currently in production, I can see.
No, they're all the films that we have made in Panavision anamorphic.
Now, I know that as well as helping to run the company, your great personal passion is sport, and you were, for many years, indeed still are, in your spare time, a cameraman, if you have any spare time. Goal was a notable success because England were a notable success in the 1966 World Cup. You must have felt all your Christmases had come at once when you covered that one, didn't you?
Well, it was very exciting because it was the first one that I got very involved in and was technical director on. And of course, probably one of the classic sports films of all time. And I don't think that's just because England won, but it just happens to have all worked.
Second bow shoots. No luck. With seconds left, Hurst runs through scattered defence alone. He's the first man to score 3 in a World Cup final.
How many cameras did you have on that one?
We had 17 cameras on the final. We
Were you on one of them?
I was on one of them, yes. I, in fact, have worked this year on a feature film called Yesterday's Hero, Ian McShane and Jackie Collins' script.
Yeah.
And I worked a camera on that, so did my brother David. We still keep our hand in.
Also, there's a television director, a friend of mine called Bob Garden, who's credited with having done the first ground-level shots at Wembley, but you wouldn't agree with that view of history, I'm told.
Well, we, for goal, for the final of goal, in fact, dug in the grass by the side of the pitch, pits, which kept filling up with water. And that was the very first occasion that there were ever any pits dug at Wembley. We had to have a man in the pit with the cameramen to bail them out right through the afternoon because we had great water problems. But that was the first time ever.
But covering the World Cup must be a piece of cake compared with covering the Olympics. How many of those have you done?
I've done now 4 Olympics.
Perhaps the most interesting one, artistically speaking anyway, was Visions of 8, in which you invited 8 distinguished directors to make their own view of the games. Did you find that there was a lot of ego competition between them?
They were all very polite and very correct, but they all wanted to be the best. And so the demands, I was director of photography to 8 of the top world's directors all at the same time, which had its problems. But
what sort of problems?
Well, I mean, if one had 28 cameras on an event, then the next one wanted 28 cameras, and on things like the 100 meters to try and get Ichikawa made a 10-minute film about the 10 seconds of the 100-meter final. So we had to get 28 cameras around that 100 meters final. Yeah, that's fine if there aren't television and press and everybody else also trying to get those positions.
What do you find the most satisfying moment from Visions of 8 when you look back at it? What worked best, do you think?
I think the 100 meters final, to have 8 cameras, each one straight down the track, looking with a long telephoto lens and asking cameramen to hold focus so that you've got big, tight close-ups of them, and the cameramen perform.
Here, time is passing 4 times slower than normal speed. Things the human eye could otherwise miss come into sight. Eyes. They must be seeing something, but they appear to see nothing. Expression. Is it pain, anxiety, determination? It's like all of them, but like none of them. Breathing. Are they or are they not breathing while running? It's something medical science has yet to establish. It's something they can't even answer themselves.
British cameramen are the best in the world now at sports. We have a reputation. I've just come back from New York, and we've signed a contract to do the official film in Lake Placid, the Winter Olympics there, and I think it says a lot for British technicians that the Americans want us to go and do their official film.
And what about the Moscow Olympics?
Well, that's going well. I've been appointed by Yuri Ozerov, who was one of the directors in Visions of 8 in Munich. He's now directing the official film there, and he's appointed me technical director, a technical director. That's going to have a lot of problems.
White Rock must have had them too. That's a film I enjoyed a great deal about winter events, where James Coburn, apart from anything else, showed enormous guts. I mean, he actually did try a great many things, didn't he?
Oh, yes, he went down the bob run about 6 times and stood in the goal with the Austrian team in the ice hockey, firing pucks at him, whilst he described what ice hockey was all about.
Did you lose a lot of cameras on that? I mean, you strapped them to skis and all sorts, didn't you?
Yes, we put one very miniature camera onto a skier's boot, who then jumped on the 90-meter jump with it, which was a very exciting shot. And we, in fact, lost a Panavision Arriflex on the very first day of shooting, and the very first shot we did, which was on the bob run. And we mounted it on the front of the bob. And our mount was all right, but the bob came to pieces.
From its incredibly modest beginnings with just one camera, Samuelson's has become such a vast organisation that we can't hope to tell its story in 1 week. So be sure and join me next Monday at the same time for Slate 2. Till then, goodbye.
It's too close. It's Valerie Borsoff. Robert Taylor second.
Och den skottar den iväg. Och det är lite jämnt och det är fint för Cornelius som sätter den nästa bort. För Borsoff också. Och vi går väl